there's like one final straw. But I guess even when watching the film, you could tell this George Bailey guy is a wonderful person. He is valued by his family, his friends, loved ones. While he may not be, I guess you could say, the richest, he is the richest at heart. And, I don't want to spoil too much, but watching this at first, I was like, some parts I was like, whatever, but when it got to the end, I found myself moved with tears, and watched it and I was like, oh, they're taking it again. They're doing it again. It's so good. And while I'm gonna say some things that might be kind of spoiler-ish, but I'm recognizing a trend in some of the stories. This also follows, I guess you could say, an unlikable character. Marty Mouser is not really a likable person. He's kind of shitty and very selfish and thinks he's higher and above everybody in his was recently fired from his job. And because, for those who know, I guess how hard it is now to find a job these days, he has no other choice but to eliminate other potential people who are applying for the jobs he is. And that's kind of the trajectory his character takes. And for me, at least when I saw it, I had a lot of emotions. But one of the strongest things that I came out of it is that this is what capitalism does to individuals. While I wouldn't say this is realistic, it's not supposed to be. It's supposed to make commentary and tweak it a bit. It kind of reveals how desperate people are getting. There is this desperation. You have to support your family. There is something that losing a job does to your self-image, your relationship not just to your wife or your partner, but to your kids, and the obligations you feel like you have to carry on. And I think Park Chan-wook does a great job at that. And I do like how they also, at the ending, spoilers, while this man comes on top at the end and gets the job, he is working in a factory without workers. Basically, everything he loved about his job is not there. It's been replaced with AI-driven machines, and, I think we are heading towards that future, which is kind of scary. I think the acting was great, and obviously the transitions and scenes and shots are beautiful. I think that's something that Park Chan-wook is very well known for. I don't know how to feel about some things in the film. I'm just okay, that was a little disappointed, lackluster, but I still think it's a solid film, worth watching. Give films a chance. Don't just watch one movie a year. Watch as many as you can, if you can. I know not everybody's in the same situation, but yeah, it's a solid 4 out of 5, and I also include it in my top 4 alongside Marty Supreme and The Secret Agent. The next movie we have is pretty old. It has Katharine Hepburn, Cary Grant, and Jimmy Stewart. Once again, that is 3 movies with Jimmy Stewart. And honestly, I watched this one with my sister, and I found it kind of hard to follow, only because of, I don't know what kind of accent it is that Katharine Hepburn has, but I could not hear that well, and I was like, damn, what are they saying? That's why I kind of wish I had subtitles. But this film, I guess, is actually part of this larger genre of divorce, remarriage movies, and basically it follows Katharine Hepburn, who is going to get married again, and there's this journalist who comes to her wedding. They have no prior relations, but then her ex-husband, and I will say, there is some great, chemistry between Jimmy Stewart and Katharine Hepburn in this movie, but I was low-key disappointed with the ending. I was like, are you kidding me? This is the ending? I was not rooting for this to be the ending, but I thought it was kind of funny and witty at times, but I think it's not the best thing I've seen, is all I'm gonna say. And while I haven't given this a rating yet on my letterbox, I'm gonna give it 1 right now, and I think it's a 3.5, 3.5 out of 5. It's good, but there is something missing there. Also, for those who don't know, Katharine Hepburn is actually, I think, she's won the most Oscars as an actress. Yeah, I think she has 5. Anyway, let me move on to the last film I saw. I actually saw this on New Year's Eve, and I saw it at the theater, and it is The Apartment, which I think is a 1959 film directed by Billy Wilder. For those who don't know, Billy Wilder also directed Sunset Boulevard. this is happening, he also kind of has a crush on the elevator lady, who is really cute. She's a really beautiful actress. She has this like wonderful dark short hair, but that's besides the point. And, you know, everything goes well until the highest level of it. I guess, like, you could say the CEO is in on it, and that's when he figures out that this elevator lady that he's had a crush on is having an affair with the CEO, and things kind of go crazy after that. And there's this huge drama, but I honestly think it is a romantic film, and it kind of just shows this laziness of these office men, these like high position office men, and how they'll try to paint themselves as, well, I'm a good man, but I'm also gonna like screw you over if you don't give me what I want. And yeah, I honestly thought it was very funny and beautiful. I don't know, I'm a sucker for romances like this. I honestly feel bad because when it ended, I recognized that my older sister was crying, and I low-key blurted it out loud. I'm like, are you crying? I didn't really cry to it, but I will say this film kind of tackles, you know, some difficult things. Just like, It's a Wonderful Life, you have themes of like suicide and depression, and, you know, trying to figure out what your self